keep that in mind. And I want to pin Peggy. Let's see, how can I do this? Can I pin me too? I want to see everybody. Maybe we don't do that. So this is an interactive webinar. And we're very glad that you're here. I know this time isn't always convenient for everybody, but super glad that you're all here with us. And oh gosh, we've got more joining. This is great. This is wonderful. Thank you all for being here. Let me just unpin Peggy because I'm not seeing our guests. I want to see our guests too. Let's do that. Ooh, I'm very large now. Let's remove my pin. Okay, here we are. So thank you all for being here. If you're not familiar with Dr. Peggy DeLong, otherwise known as the gratitude psychologist, I've had her on my weekly live broadcast. She was on several months ago. And she was also a member of, she was a panelist on the Women of Gratitude live World Gratitude Day roundtable. So some of you may have met her there, but she is a friend, but also the author of the book that we've been working on here in the Journaling Club for the month of December, simply called Gratitude Journal. As you can see, it is chock full, 365 days full of wonderful prompts. And I want you guys to be able to ask any questions you might have and share your experience with the, if you've been participating in the challenge. I want you to be able to chime in if you would like, or you're welcome to sit and listen and learn, because Peggy's got a really powerful story. So first off, thank you, Dr. Peggy DeLong, for being here with us. I know it's a crazy time of year, so appreciate you being here with us.
My pleasure. Any opportunity to speak about gratitude, I love it.
And this is why we are friends. It turned out, for those of you that don't know, I jokingly say, whenever I look for a guest for my weekly live broadcast, which has been on hiatus for a few months, I say that I stalk them. And I found Dr. DeLong on Instagram. When I saw Gratitude Psychologist, I'm like, how do I not know this person? So of course I stalked her, and it turns out she lives 20 minutes from me, which is odd because while we're in New Jersey, which is a heavily populated state, our section of New Jersey is very vast and not much is around us. So we have seen each other in person. We went to lunch, we went to a screening of the film Gratitude Revealed together. But we have become friends, but she has an incredible story. So before we dive into the book, and thank you all for being here. If you're joining us late, I just want to let you know that we are recording this, hopefully. I pressed, yes, we are recording. We're recording this for those that cannot be here live. But thank you all for being here live. So before we dive into this wonderful book that we've been working out of, I've asked Peggy if you could share your background, because I think it's really pertinent, and you do talk about it in the front of the book. You've got a really powerful story of gratitude, and I'd love to share with everybody.
Sure. So I discovered gratitude during the worst time of my life. I was an ungrateful teen, an ungrateful young adult. I did not appreciate what I had, and it took tragedy to open up my eyes to the power of gratitude. And that is when I was 26 years old. I was engaged for 3 months. I had applied to graduate school. I was granted 6 interviews. I was so excited. Everything that I had worked so hard for professionally and in my personal life, everything was going well, until suddenly it wasn't. And that was when what appeared literally overnight, my fiance developed a lump on the side of his neck. And when he called me into the bathroom to show me, I just had a terrible premonition that I would be living my life without him, even when we didn't know what it was. And unfortunately, it was a very aggressive form of cancer. When he was first diagnosed, unfortunately, it took 2 weeks to get a diagnosis. And then when we finally got one, they said he had about a 15% chance of survival. And without any treatment, he would die in 2 weeks. And thankfully, he was able to achieve one wonderful remission. And then suddenly things took a turn for the worst. And it was in those last 42 days of his life when he was at the hospital, when the doctors said that there was nothing left that they could do for him. That is when I discovered the power of gratitude. When my entire world had been turned upside down, it was gratitude that got me through those days. And my 26-year-old self had no idea that what I was doing was practicing gratitude. Only in hindsight does it all make sense to me now. And when everything was so unpredictable, each day, I didn't know if he'd be able to open his eyes and look at me that day. I didn't know if he'd be able to speak that day. I didn't know if he was going to die that day. I sat by his side and slept by his side for 42 nights and days, and just was so riddled with anxiety due to the unpredictability of it all. But the one thing that was predictable was that I could get myself a cup of hazelnut coffee. And it was that cup of hazelnut coffee that brought me so much comfort. And looking at why, it was just the simplest of things. It was the aroma and how it permeated his hospital room and made it seem less sterile. It reminded me of home. I started drinking hazelnut coffee my senior year in high school. It was how I would start my day with my mother, just enjoying slowing down and enjoying a cup before I started high school. It brought me so much comfort. I'd wrap my hands around the cup that I got from the cafe, and it just brought me so much comfort. When all of the guests would leave at 8 p.m. and I was allowed to stay, it was just me and that cup of hazelnut coffee, because sometimes he'd be sleeping and wasn't able to talk. And it just brought me comfort and kept me company as I would journal, take a sip and journal a little bit. And it was in those days that really taught me that it's the simplest of things that make us feel good. And then, unfortunately, after he passed away, 6 weeks later, my father died unexpectedly. And once again, it was gratitude that helped me get through that time as well. Gratitude for the love that was shown my family, gratitude for all of the experiences that I had with both my fiance and my father. I'm so grateful that I did move back home to be with my parents those last 6 weeks of my father's life. So looking for every silver lining and every lesson and every related value got me through the worst time of my life. And then as a psychologist, it really became interesting to me. Why is gratitude so powerful? So I love that it's not just me, it's not just self-report. There's brain science behind the power of gratitude. And I love that. I love that we can see functional MRIs and see that when we practice gratitude on a regular basis, we're forming new neural pathways in our brains to be more positive thinkers. And also the neurochemistry, that when we think about what we're grateful for, we automatically get a dose of serotonin and dopamine in our brains. And that is those are the hormones that are responsible for making us feel better. So it works at any time of day. It works at 3 o'clock in the morning. It works on your very worst day. In fact, I love to say that gratitude is most powerful on your worst day. Don't save gratitudes for the good days. It's most powerful on your worst days. And it's accessible at any time, even when we think we don't have anything to be grateful for, when life has thrown us a terrible curveball and it just can feel so gut-wrenching awful. There is something to be grateful for. I found it in hazelnut coffee. It didn't change the fact that my fiance was dying, but it did make me feel better. So it has become my mission to teach people simple ways so we don't get bored. So to practice gratitude in ways that feel good, are interesting, so we keep on doing them, to feel good in the moment and to set ourselves up for long-term better mental health.
And you do it so well. And I know through your work, you're known as the gratitude psychologist, which I already said, but I know through your work, you work a lot with women who have been widowed, who have experienced grief. And I know you also work with gratitude and nature. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Yes, nature is my other favorite thing that is accessible to us. Even in urban settings, there are things to look for, that we are biologically connected to nature. And when we harness the healing power of nature and when we know more about it, we can really connect to that. So for example, we are biologically connected to water. So when we are around water, in it, on it, looking at it, under it, that helps us to feel better. There's a great book called Blue Mind that gets into the science behind the power of water and how it is good for our mental health. Same thing with trees, and the term forest bathing, that when we are in the forest, whether even around trees that don't have leaves, but particularly when they do, that helps our immune system. And then there's the awe factor. When we see awe in nature, that helps us to feel better. It suspends, we kind of lose ourselves in time and space. One study found that people were inaccurate. They were not able to estimate time correctly when they saw awe in nature, because we really lose sense of time and space when we see something beautiful. When you think about it, look, the last time you saw a beautiful sunset or anything gorgeous in nature, you very likely were not angry at that very moment. Your worries of the day disappeared. So it just helps to minimize all of that negative thinking that's going on in our heads all day long, but when we see awe in nature. So next time you're in nature or even in an urban setting, seek out trees, any type of water, including a puddle of rain in the sidewalk, and really harness that power, connect to it.
Yeah, I recommend in my intention journal, I have a chapter on, I forget what the chapter is called, but it's about nature, earthing, I think it's called. And I encourage people, just if they are able to, go outside, stand barefoot in the grass for a couple minutes. As studies do show that helps to kind of release tension, and connecting with the earth is very powerful. And I like what you said about losing yourself and losing the sense of time. It's something we talk about a lot in Attitude of Gratitude with chronic pain, that we find things that help us keep our mind off of the pain. And while maybe we haven't lost a spouse, we do experience significant losses in many other ways with chronic pain and illness, which is why I love your work so much, because grief takes on a lot of hats. There's grief of lost abilities, lost occupations, lost spouses due to divorce, lost friends who don't understand what we're going through. So we have a whole cornucopia of grief as well, and your work, which you can find. Let me put the link to her website here in the chat. It's drpeggydelong.com. Hang on one sec. She also has, I forgot about this, but she also makes gratitude jewelry, and
Nobody was.
she gave me this bracelet, which is called Gratitude Heals. And that you do that kind of in your spare time for fun, right?
Yes, well, it started as stress relief. Before I started talking about gratitude and positive psychology, my private practice was focused on forensic psychology. So I would testify all over the state of New Jersey in child abuse and neglect cases. And it was very important work, very valuable work, but also very draining work. And I would write my reports from 8 to midnight, and I needed something to do at midnight to help unwind and not have those stories in my head. So I would bead, and I got addicted to beading. That's another wonderful thing that we can do. There's the creative outlet that also helps with mental health, and
Right.
especially things that have a repetitive movement like knitting, beading. So
Oh,
that
really?
yes, it's
Oh.
we almost get into a meditative state by that repetitive movement with the hand. So I found that I became addicted to it. Like, I didn't feel right if I didn't bead, and I was making way too much that I can possibly wear. So I started a company called Peggy's Midnight Creations. I have since changed it to now Love in a Bracelet. Love in a Bracelet much better describes what it is, and I make bracelets for grief and loss, and Gratitude Heals is my favorite and the bestseller. It's a wearable reminder to practice gratitude.
My favorite too. I've actually just put the link to Love in a Bracelet in the chat as well. So I love your work so much, and you're obviously very, very passionate about gratitude, and you were so kind to let us use the prompts from Gratitude Journal, which you put out in 2019. Yes, just a few years ago.
Yes.
And I remember when we were going into New York City to see the screening of the film, you shared with me why you felt there was a need for this journal and why you felt it was a journal like this was lacking. Can you share that with us?
Sure. So when I was doing my research and my preparation for my talks on gratitude, I came across the wonderful work of Sean Aker, and I love that he studies happiness and gratitude. He's a scientist, and he found that when we are using a gratitude journal, it's much more effective when we do two things. When we are specific about what we're writing about. So if you write about your sister, that you're grateful for your sister, then writing why. Is it that she gives great hugs, that she keeps your secrets, that you have wonderful family childhood memories? Like thinking about the why, get really specific. And then the other powerful thing is when we mix it up. So we write something different every day. So if you wrote about your sister day one, then for 30 days, challenge yourself not to write about your sister. And that helps us to scan our environment to really look for the things that we may have overlooked before. So when we do those two things, it makes a gratitude journal much more powerful. And I would give these talks and people would say, well, can you recommend one? And I was not aware of one that had those two things. So that was my intention of writing 30 different writing prompts that are different, that really encourage you to go deeper with each thing that you're grateful for.
And then you repeat them at various times
Well,
through the
yes.
365 days, right? I
Yes.
just put a link to purchase Gratitude Journal. It's an Amazon affiliate link. So if you purchase through that link, I get a little bit of a commission to help offset the cost of the group. But if you've been liking the challenge, and I would love to ask you guys what you thought in just a few minutes, because I would love for this to be an interactive talk. I was telling Peggy before we started that I've been so pleased by the what's the word I'm looking for, the
Interaction.
Yes, thank you. There's been such response to the prompts, which obviously your book is really resonating with many people, and that makes me so happy. The front of the book, first in the forward, you share about your story about your fiance and how you could count on your cup of coffee. The next page is benefits of keeping a gratitude journal, which you've kind of just touched on the science of it. Keeping a gratitude journal not only feels good in the moment, but it has long-lasting benefits by retraining the brain to see the positive. And you guys in AOG know that I pretty much preach this every single day. The next page is tips for keeping a gratitude journal. And I love this page, and I'd like to share a little bit from it if that's okay with you. One is make the experience as comfortable as possible. Write in your favorite chair. Have your favorite beverage in reach. Burn incense, light a candle, listen to music, do whatever makes you feel good. Number two is toss the self-judgment out the window. I love this one because this is really so true, I think. Many people get hung up on trying something new because they are afraid that they will not do it right. There is no right way to utilize a gratitude journal. I like that you wrote that. And I think, do you want to talk about that a little bit? Because I think we are hard on ourselves. We feel like we need to come up with a really major thing.
Right. And what I love about keeping things simple is because then you're training your brain to be more aware of the simple things, so that what previously may not have been your level of awareness of something to be grateful for, now you can become grateful for that. And it's not fake. It's truly, you feel it. And that's how I got started with that simple cup of hazelnut coffee. Before that, I wasn't grateful for the car that I shared with my siblings that my parents bought me. I wasn't grateful for a car.
Yeah.
Now I'm grateful for the green and grass, the flavor of hazelnut coffee, because I've trained my brain to appreciate that. Our brains can't tell the difference between being grateful for something that we label as small. That's just something we put a label on. So we assign everybody's different. So we subjectively assign labels to things, but our brain can't tell the difference whether we are appreciating something like the green in a blade of grass or being able to purchase a new car.
Really?
The same thing happens in the brain. It's not like you get more dopamine or more serotonin.
Right.
So we still feel good. So I like to suggest intentionally start small. Think about the things that you might take for granted, such as running water. Sometimes when we do without something, we appreciate it even more. Like here in New Jersey, when we had Hurricane Sandy in 2012, I know, Lauren, you probably as well were without power. We have a septic system, a well, without power and water for 14 days. I really appreciate when I can turn on the faucet and pick what temperature I want. But it starts with intention. So really thinking about what you might take for granted, being able to open the refrigerator and get an apple, or going to the grocery store and being able to choose 5 different types of apples. So much that was taken away at the beginning of COVID when we couldn't go to the grocery store.
Right.
But we don't have to do without something in order to raise our level of appreciation for it. Sometimes imagining being without something can help to heighten that.
Yes. And I don't know if you guys in AOG, if you caught the video I posted, I think it was 2 days ago. A friend of mine sent me this video. It was several years old, but I had never seen it. And it was done by, I believe it was done by a church, but it was this really clever video of this man, and he wakes up in the morning and everything in his life, and his wife is wrapped up as a gift, his kids are wrapped up as a gift, and every time he opens it, he's like, oh, you're here, you're alive. The refrigerator's wrapped up, his car. It was so clever. And I believe, I was telling somebody this morning, I think I should watch it every morning, because gosh, it really put into perspective the things we do take for granted. And when you live with chronic pain and illness, some days it's just really, really difficult to find gratitude, but it requires that digging deep and finding that, I have a roof over my head, and I have this coffee, the temperature of the water, having internet access, which we all do. Many of us can't get out of the house. So being able to stay connected in this way is wonderful. So sometimes it requires digging deep. And I love that you put that keeping it simple on there, because that's really important.
And I also like to highlight that gratitude for me, and I think it's helpful to understand that it's never to be used to ignore your emotional or physical pain.
Right.
It's not to put a Band-Aid on that and pretend it doesn't exist. To feel sad, to allow yourself to maybe feel sorry for yourself. We just don't want to get stuck there. And gratitude is one way to not get stuck there,
Right.
whether with any type of pain.
And I think that's a big misconception. When I advertise AOG, I get a lot of comments from people who don't understand exactly what we're about. I think they think that the group is just kind of, looking on the bright side and being in la la land, without realizing that what we do is an intentional practice, and it's very hard. But the payoff is wonderful. So I kind of ignore those comments. We're not for everybody, but when you understand what we're about, it's using gratitude as a tool to make those bad days perhaps not so bad, and to retrain our brain, like you said. We all have these big plot twists in life. None of us expected to become sick or injured or whatever our situations are, lose a spouse. But that doesn't mean we have to live life in misery. We can feel that misery, and we need to feel that misery, but then we need to find a way to move forward if we expect to find any kind of joy and purpose in life, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So number 3, you say, do what feels natural to you. If you are an expressive writer, do some free writing and simply write what flows. If you prefer bullet points, then bullet away. Number 4 is try to be as specific as possible. This gives the most power to the experience and gives your brain more information to work with. And that's what I think what I know your journal provides that most gratitude journals do not, because it's not just, I'm picking day 150 here. What about nature are you grateful for? Most gratitude journals would just leave it at that and then give you blank space to write. You follow it up with, describe the sights, sounds, aromas, and what you can touch. And then how does connecting with nature make you feel? So you encourage us through your journal to be as specific as possible. Go
Yes,
ahead.
yes, that was my whole intention. So I'm glad
Yes.
that is coming through.
Yes. I love that. That's why I chose it for this month's challenge, because it really does help to not only, find what's good about nature, but really figure out why. And then sometimes you don't always think why, but it forces us to really think through, like, oh, well, I'm grateful for this thing because of this, that, and that. And
That's the mechanic.
let's see.
And that's impossible. There could be no water in the carburetor.
Sorry, we will unmute in a minute. And then number 5 is make a commitment to journal every day, even if it is only for a few minutes. Keeping a daily habit is one more way to strengthen the neural pathways and develop a gratitude mindset. So that is all in the journal. And then you get started with day 1. So you published this in 2019. And obviously you see what the response is from our group, but what is the response you've felt from others who've purchased your journal?
I think that what I hear the most is that people appreciated being having some direction, because it can feel very daunting to open up a blank notebook and just not know what to write. But people they know they're grateful for things, but it's just hard to get started. So the feedback that I'm getting is that it kind of is a relief to not have to think about what to write about, that I provide the prompt and then the follow-up questions to get deeper.
Yeah, blank page is very daunting, especially on a day where you're not feeling grateful. And as you already said, those are the days where it's most important to try to practice gratitude. So I love this book. Again, as you can, if you're joining us late, this is a big, thick book, and I put the link to purchase it in the chat. We have a comment from Heidi. I heard a lecture that you should be grateful for things that you have that your great grandparents had never heard of, such as running water, electricity, which includes home with correct temperature and light at all hours, clothes that you didn't need to make, etc. That's a really good tip. If you guys have heard my story, and that's probably most of you, I can always go back to June 20th, 2013, which was my worst and best day. That was the day of my rock bottom, where I had a DUI and woke up in a hospital. I drove in a blackout, passed out behind the wheel of the car, woke up in a hospital bed having no idea how I'd gotten there. And the misery, I can still bring it up right now and cry if I wanted to, and I just might. But on my worst day, I think back to that and I know anything is better than that. And I was sharing with somebody this morning that actually I was sharing with Linda this morning. I thought my life was over as I knew it. And it took one day at a time, 1 minute at a time sometimes. And it was a very painful 1 minute at a time. But eventually I came out of it. And today I'm living a very happy, joyful life, thanks to gratitude and thanks to these connections through this group. I often say that gratitude paired with connection, I believe, is the secret sauce to a life of joy and purpose when living with chronic pain and illness. So we want to hear from you guys. What has been your experience so far, if you are participating in the challenge? And you can either talk out loud, excuse me, or you can put something in the chat, or any questions you might have for Dr. Peggy. Excuse me, I don't know what's going on with me today. Was it snowing and icing by you, Peggy? It was here.
Yes, I'm looking at it
really is.
now.
Yeah.
It's gorgeous right now.
Yeah,
Gigantic flakes.
Yeah.
I'm
Peggy's an avid skier, so she sees snow and she wants to run. But please feel free to weigh in. No pressure to do that, but we'd love to hear from you guys what you've thought, obviously this challenge has resonated with so many in the journaling club because we've got a wonderful response. Or any questions you might have for Peggy and her work. Let me show you her website. I did put the link in the chat. Hang on. You do hikes and things with women who are grieving. Yes, you offer that a few times a year.
Yes, 2 or 3 times a year, and each hike will have a different theme, but usually related to connecting with nature and teaching people how to connect to the power of nature. And then we'll stop and pause, and I'll point out different landscape and how that affects us emotionally. And just really teaching people how they when they go on their next hike, they can really feel different about it and maximize the power of nature simply by learning a little bit more about how it affects the brain.
It's beautiful. Do you see patients virtually?
I do. I see people both online and in person in my home cozy office where I'm at right now. I had a private practice in town, but then with COVID, I shut that down. Everybody wanted online appointments. So I love working out of my home. I wish I had done it a long time ago, but it works for me now. Both virtual and online.
Do you work with people that would have, grief from living with chronic pain or other forms of grief?
Yes, all forms of grief. And I came across a wonderful article that I think might be of interest to people. It just came in my email box this morning. Let's see if I can find the title. A Grief That Never Ends, Chronic Sorrow. And so if you Google that, it's posted on psychologytoday.com. And it talks about all different kinds of losses, including those that come with chronic pain. Identity changes. Really powerful essay that
I'm surprised that escaped my radar. I will look that up.
Well, it just came out. I think it was just posted to psychologytoday.com yesterday.
Oh, okay.
And somebody brought it to my attention, so I'm now bringing it to your attention. It was incredible.
That does. I will look that up. If you guys want to put in the chat, what has been your favorite part about this month's challenge so far? If you'd like to share, how it has made you think differently, if it has, affected your life in any way, how it's different. Christine has some things to say. Let's go, Christine. Hi, Christine.
Okay, I felt, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I felt like it was just way too much to type in the box. So
good. I'm glad you're talking. Thank you.
So I have a couple things to say. Is that okay?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay. First of all, Peggy, I'm a fan. If you didn't know that, I'm a big fan.
Me too.
But no, I really enjoyed. First, let's start with the gratitude journal. So I really enjoyed the prompts for all the reasons that Lauren said. Actually, I like that it was more than one question, and that the further questions helped you to expand more on the original one. On the page on Facebook, I responded sometimes, but then other times I felt like there was just so much I had to write. I just journaled on my my regular hardcover journal.
Mm-hmm.
And I found that some of the questions were just different, different than the typical questions you see. I read your other book. So for those of you who don't know, I won Lauren's broadcast. Peggy was on, and I just happened to be the person that won the wheel spin. And so the other book, I think it's I Can See Clearly Now, that talks about your personal story. And I apologize because I was supposed to get back to you about how I liked it, and I read it on vacation, and then I came back and everything just got chaotic. But I would recommend that to people too. I really enjoyed it. I liked that it was a story where you felt like you were sitting with a friend telling the story.
I agree.
I had to all right, so I had a little bit of a hard time reading parts of it. I'm actually a Hodgkin survivor. So there was actually parts of it where I had to kind of just put it away for a little bit, which I'm glad I did, because then I came back to it and was able to really not enjoy. Well, I enjoy your writing, actually.
I do too. It's very accessible. I think it feels like
Yeah,
you're
it's
listening
very
to a friend, like you
fluid.
said.
Yeah, it's very fluid. And anyways, it's a great story. And I guess that's it. That's all I have to say.
I'm glad you brought that up, Christine. I wanted to bring up her other books as well. I'm going to put a link. I thought I had the book right behind me. It's here somewhere, but I can't see it. I know it's here behind me, but it's her memoir, right? Right, Peggy? Do you want to
It's
talk
a
about that
memoir.
one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm so touched.
Aw.
Oh, now I'm gonna cry.
Yeah, writing that book was just something I had to do. It took me 25 years to write, and just hearing that it resonated with you just means a lot.
This is the book. I can see clearly now, a memoir about love, grief, and gratitude. It is a beautiful book.
Yeah, it's been 28 years since my fiance and my father died. But grief, it stays with you. I'll always carry that grief, and I'll always love them. And it's part of why I chose my now husband, because I needed somebody to understand that, love doesn't die, and I would never stop talking about my fiance, and my now husband is not threatened in any way by that. We've been married, it'll be 25 years next fall, as well as my mother. My mother remarried, and she has been married 23 years. So thankfully, we both had the courage to allow love back in our lives. It was, 1994 was a really, really tough year. I never imagined that my mother and I would both be without our partners. But through the power of gratitude and love for each other, we got through it. And so it just means so much to me. I can't explain why I needed to write that book. I think when I really just wanted the world to know about these two men that were so wonderful. And it just means so much that people are reading it and appreciating it, and that it touched you. That means a lot to me. So thank you for sharing, Christine.
You're welcome. And
Yeah,
I actually, what you just said is actually a point that I hadn't thought of until you said it, that I felt like I knew those two people.
Me
and
too.
who they were. So
Me
that
too.
was,
I
that was
told her.
pretty cool.
I told her that on our car ride into New York to see the screening, that I like the whole part where you describe you meeting Scott and dating and all of that. I felt like I was there. Like, you're very gifted in writing, so the reader feels a part of the entire thing. I felt like a third wheel, but in a good way.
It was a wonderful exercise to write it, and it took me a long time, because in the meantime I have been running my private practice and have 3 children, and so that pulled me away from it. But it really didn't require much work, because it was all written. It was that journal that I kept by his side. From the day of diagnosis all the way through his treatment, after he died, after my father died, up until meeting my husband, I kept almost a daily journal. And it was really just turning that journal into a creative narrative, nonfiction, but it reads like a novel. But
It
it's just
does.
my life.
It must have been painful.
It was painful to revisit some things, especially when my editor had me really dive deep into conversation and scenery and using the senses. So I really had to immerse myself in 1994. And some of that was really difficult, but at the same time, very therapeutic.
I'm sure it was. And I'm sure that Scott was with you the entire time. And what an amazing husband you have, to just be so secure in himself and recognize, excuse me, that you can still be in love with him while holding on to the love of somebody else. You're very fortunate. I know you know that.
Yes. Yeah. And I knew he was the man for me when he, asked Scott's permission up in heaven
Yeah, that's
to marry me and my father, just that he really honors how important those two men are for me, still are.
yeah. Yeah. Courtney Reed wrote in the chat, I've noticed that this practice has improved my mood. I don't hold on to the frustrations of life nearly as long as I used to. That's so great. That's so great, Courtney. I know Courtney's a bit under the weather. Otherwise, she'd be chiming in too. That's wonderful. That's really wonderful.
And that's the power of gratitude. And that's particularly part of your brain called the reticular activating system doing its job. But it starts with intention, with an intentional practice of gratitude and paying attention to all of the great things. And then the reticular activating system kicks in and starts to work for you kind of behind the scenes by paying attention to more of the good things, where the previous things that may have frustrated you or annoyed you are they bother you less or may not even be in your level of awareness anymore. And that is credit the reticular activating system for doing that. And it starts to happen effortlessly. All of a sudden, there's more to be grateful for. And you may notice that the things that previously bothered you or frustrated you simply don't anymore.
It's amazing. And so many people think of gratitude as the hot buzzword or what's the term that's been going around, toxic positivity, without really understanding that it's more than just, you can't just be grateful. You can make a decision to work towards it and to make the practice, but you can't just decide to be grateful, right?
Yeah, it's not a 24/7.
Right. Hey,
With
Kathy.
me- Hi, I just had an appointment with my counselor and I told him about AOG, both
Thank
him
you.
and my trauma counselor. And I just dropped down to every other week instead of every week. And I just really think it's because I have this group, I don't need him as much.
That's amazing. So
Can't
happy
go to
for you.
counseling forever, it's been decades. And it's like,
Wow.
I want to move away from this, and you guys are a lot funner than an hour of my counselor. So he's good. He's good.
That's
But
just
That's funny.
amazing.
you guys are more wonderful.
That's wonderful news. I'm so happy for you.
I'm just kind of dipping into all of this information. I don't know, what has it been, 7-8 months since I joined? But I hear about all these books and all of this information, and I can't really take it all in, but little tidbits here and there are cool. And I really like that I can listen to the programs, that I don't have to read it, and that they're just available on the site. So thank you.
That makes me really happy, Kathy. Thank you. We do try to make sure that, well, first of all, I always say, and they say this in AA meetings, take what you want and leave the rest. And so I use that with AOG too, because it would be not only just AOG, but also our sister groups, my broadcast, my vlog, now AOG on Mighty Networks. It's a lot. It would be impossible to do everything. But the point of it all is to live your life. I don't want anybody being married to our groups. Otherwise it kind of misses the point. But if you can take, even if there's one small thing, hopefully there's more, but even if there's one small nugget of what we have to offer that helps you, that's a big win, because, living with chronic pain and illness, we struggle. Everybody struggles in life. Everybody's got something, but we have unique struggles that not everybody understands. And so if you can feel like you're a part of something bigger than yourself and be inspired by somebody else saying they took a shower today, we know how monumental that can be.
Yeah. What's great for me is that I can pop in and pop out.
Yeah. Good.
It's like, I don't have to have known what happened yesterday to benefit from what's going on today. I didn't even know this was happening. Kirsten let me know, and I popped in after
Thanks, Kirsten.
I'm very grateful. My neighbor surprised me by plowing my driveway.
Oh, that's nice.
Yeah,
Something to be grateful for sure.
definitely. So,
Thanks for telling her about it, Kirsten.
and thanks for, writing that book and making that book so that my friends on AOG talk about it. And I benefit from that, even though I'm not reading the book.
Great. Thank you, Kathy.
And that's really the point of not only our journaling club, but also the book club. I just filmed a short video this morning talking about our book club, but it's, if you like the book, maybe you want to purchase it, but you don't need to purchase it in order to participate in the club, nor do you have to have done, the previous 14 days in order to take part in today. So I'm really happy to hear that. That's great.
And it's okay to skip a day in the book. I purposefully didn't give days, like dates, so that each page has like day 1, day 2, so that it doesn't matter if you skip December 16th. You can just pick up the next day, so you don't feel like there's any getting behind.
Love it. What would you recommend? This is a very loaded question, I realize that, but for people that are just having a really, really difficult time finding gratitude, what would be your suggestions for that?
My suggestion for that is to look for an underlying value. So, for example, if you're experiencing grief, the underlying value is love. So you wouldn't be having the grief if you didn't have the love. So look for what might be the underlying value. And that is what, and then celebrate that and try to find one way to be that. And I'll just use the example of when I was grieving. After my fiance died, I was at a time in my life where it seemed like all of my friends were getting married, everybody was having babies, and I was grieving. And it was just so awful. But looking at the love and celebrating the love that we had, as well as the love that was shown to him and me that I wouldn't have experienced otherwise, that is what I hung on to, the love. So if there's find the related value in something to celebrate that you can be, and then be that for somebody else. So it felt good that people were writing me letters. And then I took it a step further and then reached out to somebody that meant something to me. And then that made me feel good. So that would be one suggestion. And to keep it simple, really, really simple. That's what we need on the days when we have little energy and are just feeling really down, to keep it simple.
Gosh, I love that suggestion of looking at the underlying value. I'm not sure I've heard that before. What a fantastic tip. Really digging deeper into why you're feeling this way and the value that that's so smart, and it makes so much sense. Kirsten says, I absolutely love that you taught the science of gratitude. Me too. I was telling somebody in Flush the Format yesterday that somehow we got on the subject of math. Yeah. And so I said, usually they say the math and science brains go together. I am a terrible science brain, but I was always good at math. But I know I can science of gratitude. That's my thing. I love that too. And it's funny because I don't need scientific proof, evidence, and studies, but I get giddy every time one comes out because I'm like, see, it's proven. Courtney, of course you can chime in. Hope you're feeling a little better today.
I am, thank you.
Oh, good.
A little bit better every day.
Good.
I just wanted to piggyback off what Peggy was saying about finding the underlying things, like in grief, there was love. And sometimes this group has made me say things that sometimes shock people, but I'm a child of an enormous amount of trauma, and it followed me all the way into adulthood. And then I was sick too. And of course, I'm sick and chronically ill because of this childhood. And it was like, well, great, and so I felt this incredible, trying so hard, I was always in survival mode and trying so hard to stay positive in this world, but wasn't was very self-sabotaging, very low self-esteem kind of stuff, but put on the good face so everyone thought my life was perfect.
Mm.
And what's happened is, by practicing this, is that I find gratitude even in the trauma. So, and that sounds weird to people, but it's kind of like the grief. It's like, well, I wouldn't have experienced, like if I hadn't experienced certain of these things, it may not have brought me to being as compassionate as I am and as empathetic. You know, they call me an empath. And I think all it did was blow it up, like make me more so, not less. And I'm glad that I'm that way. Like, I don't see it as a negative anymore. I used to think it was a negative thing. And now I can see all the positives out of it. And so even like in grief, having trauma as much as I did was a grief. And no one had touched on that. And everybody's just like, oh my God, you know, like, you're amazing that you went through all this stuff, and, you know, and you're still here, and you look fine. And it's like, oh, but I'm not fine.
Yeah.
I'm not fine. And then I got this stinking chronic illness on top of it. Like, it was like, life's not fair kind of thing.
Yeah.
And practicing this all the time, especially Peggy, your book, it's done something for me that no other counselor, and as Lauren knows, I could have my own bookstore for real. Like, it's not like that I haven't been trying to constantly pull myself out of the rumination of everything. And I didn't typically blame life so much as I was always blaming myself. And practicing gratitude and just finding the very small things has oddly made me appreciate me more.
Wonderful.
Yeah. That's beautiful. That's beautiful. And then sharing it with others like us helps us, and it helps you. That's why I think the group is so powerful. To when I think when we become sick or injured, or whatever our grief is, you know, we are often so tied up in our identity being our occupation, what we do for a living and things. And if that is all of a sudden be stripped away, perhaps we can't contribute financially to the family anymore. Feelings of worthlessness are very heavy with people, and it can be very difficult to dig out of that. Peggy, do you have anything to say about that?
Yeah, what I love, what you highlighted was, I see gratitude as helping in two ways that you pointed out. And one is that it makes us feel good. The other is that it often stops that rumination, that when we let it go, it spirals. You know, our thoughts have energy, and they truly do gain momentum. So when we're on a negative track, it gets stronger and stronger. And then that has a direct impact on how we're feeling, both physically and emotionally. And when we can switch that, it's really hard to just shut off a thought. It's got energy. But when we send that in a positive direction, it can be just enough of a shift to have a better day, because it stopped that negative rumination, at least in the moment. And then you might go, you know, back to negative thinking, and then you can try it again. And it's just keep doing it. But that's exactly what happens. Just like you said, it stopped that rumination.
Right. And sharing it takes away its power too, in whatever way you share it, whether it's words on a page or sharing it, you know, verbally, which is why we offer our Flush the Format live chats. It takes away some of its power. Another AA-ism that they say is your brain is a dangerous neighborhood to be in by yourself. And
Yeah.
I find that to be true. Who said, yeah, Kathy?
Kathy.
Yeah.
The time that I spend on AOG now, I was spending ruminating, laying in my bed or watching TV show after show, just because I didn't want my brain to be thinking about how can I get my children back in my life. And that part about love, that it's love, that grief is love that can't be expressed. So you got to
Right.
find some more else to express that, which I
Gosh, I
have.
just saw that quote like 2 days ago. Or something similar. That's funny that
Yeah.
you say that. It's so true.
Yeah, and I do better with visuals. So there's a statue of a parent that's grieving, and the whole inside of their body is empty. So it's just the frame, and then the arms and the legs are solid. And that just really hit me. But I have I can't remember the type of counseling I go to now, but it has to do with values. And he brings me back to values as well. So that really,
Right.
resonated with me. So I give my love to my nieces and nephews, my family, friends on AOG now, and puppies.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful.
That's kind of the same for me as so like like I think Peggy, you will appreciate this as a professional counselor, but most of the time when I was dealing with not only what I have now, but all this trauma stuff, it somehow like going through this process, how counselors would often approach things is not only shocking, like, oh my gosh, like you went through so much and it's going to take years and blah, blah, blah. And you're just like, like I don't want to be in it anymore though. And a lot of things didn't work for me, that rapid eye movement stuff, all of this stuff, I think maybe because there was just too much there. But I don't know, like a lot of them wanted me to like divorce my family, to not, like they're the source of where it began. And I just somehow couldn't do that because I loved them, even though. And this has helped me be able to have that gateway because I couldn't do it. And when you talk to a counselor, typically it's like, well, these people are just no good for you. They say things and they do things and it still hurts you or hurts your. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm trying to find a way for it not to. And because it begins with me, peace begins with me. And so ironically, I found AOG and I've been practicing all these little different things. And then your book, this gratitude journal that we've been practicing every day. And we also
Which you just got it in the mail the other day, right? I saw you showed it to me.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
I've been doing it online with you guys too. And actually I've got probably and I've got more books to buy too. So, but I'm a person who wants to, as Lauren, you said, I do kind of want to marry it because it took a lifetime to get to this spot. And so it's important to me to just be able to unravel it all like a ball of yarn and just let it go. And as back to like grief with my family, what's happened with me is that I don't hold them hostage anymore either. Like I've let go of whatever it was then and just focus on the present moment. What are they saying right now?
Yeah.
And if there's whatever they're saying right now is okay, then like, so what? Like that's good, right? That's what I wanted. And if I do hear negative things, my brain immediately says, well, that's not true, Courtney. And sometimes I even break out laughing. But and if I can't laugh, I just excuse myself. I just say, hey, I've got to go. I don't get in a quarrel or anything. I learned all these things from psychologists, like you need to tell them right there, right now, boundaries, like that's not okay. And I noticed that just caused more stress for my body. It just really did. Like standing up for myself in that moment also caused me to have 3 weeks of extreme pain in my body. So I was like, man, this is not quite working for me. So being able to just excuse myself worked better, but flipping my script, flipping my brain, like telling myself things like when they do say something horrible, or when people say anything horrible about anytime, like, you know, you're not as sick as you pretend to be, or whatever it is. You can flip the script really easy by using these practices, at least for me, because I'm sorry, I stumble with my words.
Fine.
But in my case, I'm able to just kind of like, well, I wonder where that came from. Like, I know this isn't about me. By doing these intentions and doing these gratitudes and finding even the hazelnut coffee, like finding these little moments of gratitude have helped me be such a better daughter, sister, friend, mother. I also have I have 3 with me right now, 2 sons and a niece that are adults, and they all have neurotypical stuff going on, and it can be very challenging. And I get slammed a lot sometimes, I just do. I'm the target. And sometimes it hurts. It feels like a bullet, like, oh my God, and then I get on this, I get on do my gratitudes for small things or whatever. And suddenly it doesn't seem so big. It just doesn't feel personal. It feels more intimate, like they're trying to share their
Perspective
feelings.
shifter, right? It shifts our perspective.
A lot.
And I want to point out 2 things that you said, that you said that it makes you a better daughter, sister, friend. And that's part of that's one of my favorite definitions of gratitude. There's lots of definitions about gratitude, but I love the one that really resonates with me, is that it puts us in such a state of appreciation that we want to return kindness. So you want to share it with the world. So that's exactly what you're describing. And then the other part, a difficult task that I think for everybody in daily living, is not taking things personally. Much easier said than done. But when we practice that, in addition to gratitude, that helps us to live happier lives. And a great book, if you need any help with that, it's called The 4 Agreements.
I love it.
Yeah,
That is my favorite book of personal growth book. Sometimes it's easier said than done, like you said, but that one, every time I bring those agreements up for everybody, that's the one they have the most trouble with.
Yes, and just rereading it can make it, any situation when you're taking something personally and your feelings are really hurt, it can just lessen that a little bit, soften it. It's such a great, I love that book.
It is.
Particularly that that chapter, don't take anything personally, as well as don't make assumptions. But the other 2, it's just a great book.
It is. And it's a great little book, but it's a good one.
The other beautiful thing is I have not read that book. A friend wrote up the 4 agreements and I have it in a frame. And because you guys have read the book and talk about it, I don't have to read the book to gain from it.
I'm so glad to hear that.
I just think that's just really cool. It's like my counselors help me, but I'm not discussing stuff with them. It's an hour, that's what is the counseling technique that they use it's like intentions with values with forward moves, but I can't remember the name of it.
I'm not sure what kind of
cognitive.
I just want to interrupt for 1 second. I noticed we're over the hour. Peggy, are you okay to stay for a couple minutes, or do you have to run?
Yes, I'm okay.
Okay. Sorry.
Is it cognitive
Kirsten
behavioral?
says ACT acceptance and commitment therapy.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yes, acceptance and commitment therapy.
Like I've made the most progress once I started that in the last couple of years along with this, and that's why I feel like I don't really need my counselor every week.
That's great. And that's, as a therapist myself, that's what I aim for. I don't want people to be dependent upon sessions. It's really teaching tools. And I really love the ideas in acceptance and commitment therapy. particularly the idea of acceptance, accepting how we feel, accepting our life circumstance, not to ignore it or repress it, because, you know, I love the phrase, what we resist persists. And when we don't allow ourselves to feel sorry for ourselves, depressed, it sometimes it just grows stronger. We need to feel that and then know the tools to help us move forward and feel better. So I'm so happy to hear that you're feeling that you don't, you know, that not going every week is helping you, maybe every other week. And then, you know, I tend to move my clients to then monthly and then just periodic check-ins when they like.
Not that you book hoarders like me need another book, but I did a vlog a couple months ago about my favorite chronic pain books. This is one of them, and I think it's out of print, but you can get used copies. It's called Living Beyond Your Pain, Using Acceptance and Commitment Therapy to Ease Chronic Pain. And I can put the link in the group, but I like ACT too. It's one of the things we worked on in rehab / the pain program when I was there 10 years ago. Yeah, Kathy, I'm so happy for you and Courtney with everything that you deal with. We all have a story. I think I shared this in the Good Night post last night. We have almost 11,000 members. Every single one of us have a story that probably knocked the wind out of all of us. Sometimes when we're in our own head, we think we're the only people with a story, but people don't usually join us flying in on the wings of victory. They're joining us because they are looking for something different. But what I love about us is usually people join knowing exactly what we're about, and to join a group like ours where you're talking about your pain levels and all of that is not permitted, tells me that you're worth it, and that's beautiful to me. You're at least willing to try, and I think that's amazing. Anybody have any last comments, questions for Dr. Peggy? This has been an
I just want to say thank you for the book, and thank you for being here, and also listening, giving me a voice. And I like what
Courtney's got pneumonia, so she's chiming in and talking with pneumonia here.
I wanted to say also like what you said about having to experience the grief. That was the thing that is so true. Like I wasn't allowed to, and nobody wanted me to ever talk about it. It was like, let's just forget all that and move forward. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to, like, you need to let go. And I'm like, I gave it to everybody. I gave it to God. I gave it to the mountains. I gave it, and it's still here with me. And so this has helped me. Actually, your story about your fiance, I was on the other time when you were talking about it, and it really resonated with me, even though I didn't share the same story. It was allowing yourself to feel the grief and also feeling the gratitude at the same time.
And that's
that
exactly,
made a difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, when I was going through it, I intuitively knew that the way for me to feel better was to allow myself to feel the depth of the grief. And everybody around me wanted me to feel better, with good intentions, but and so everyone's recommending all sorts of things to help me feel better. But I for a while, like I needed to stay in that pain. I just intuitively knew that was my way toward feeling better. But then you need to know tools to move forward that do help you to feel better. So it was gratitude and grief coexisting. They can coexist, and it's a beautiful thing that they can. Thank goodness they can.
Thank you.
Yeah, for sure. Christine, I had a feeling you would want to know the name of the book. I just tried to find it on Amazon to provide a link, and I don't see it, but I'm sure I will find it. But it's called Living Beyond Your Pain, Using Acceptance and Commitment Therapy to Ease Chronic Pain. I bought this used a couple months ago. It's got highlights and stuff in it already, but I will, I'm sure there's a link on Amazon to at least buy it used. So I will find it after we end it and put it in the comments of this. We're getting comments, a lot of thank yous. Christine says, thank you, Peggy and Lauren. Kirsten says, thank you. Thank you all for being here live. And for those of you watching the recording, I hope you got as much out of it as I have. oh, Christine already found it on Amazon. Good. Very good. You know, I've, as I've already said, I've met with Peggy in person a few times and interviewed her several times. And I always get something out of talking to you. I always learn something new, and really, really honor you and your work and sharing your story and being so vulnerable with us. I think that's what I feel makes you so special, is that, and we've talked about this before, but a lot of therapists don't share their stories. And I think that's what makes you so special, is that I feel like, you know, you're a therapist that I would want to see because you do share your story.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yes, I wear my heart on my sleeve,
Me
as
too.
you can all see.
Yep. So thank you all for being here for this special webinar in the Journaling Club. And thank you, Dr. Peggy DeLong. I did put the link again to her website. It's drpeggydelong.com. You can find out more about her work, her books. She's got a few books, her Love in a Bracelet, Gratitude Heals bracelet, along with many other bracelets for healing. Yeah, thank you, Peggy. Thank you so much for joining us during this, you know, crazy holiday time. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
All right. Thank you, gang. Talk to you soon. Hope you enjoy the rest of the month.
Bye, everybody.